Dominick, great to see you again. How was
Blake,
the weekend?
it was wonderful. It was really wonderful. Was able to spend some great quality time with the family. We did some fun stuff together. How about you?
Same thing, man. Recharge the battery and get ready for another week.
Yeah, sharpen the saw.
Well, we're excited today for the next episode, should I say, of our webinar series, and really discuss and dive into something that's near and dear to both of our hearts. And it's really when you hear these terminology in 401k plans or qualified plans, is the wonderful threes. So I like how you dropped wonderful and how your weekend was. But and when we say the wonderful threes, what we're discussing is really what you may hear as a fiduciary of your retirement plan, which are a 316 level fiduciary, a 321 or a 338 investment fiduciary, and really let our viewers and those maybe operating a plan of their own really understand what those terminologies mean.
There's like so many terms when it comes to this retirement plan business, right? And hearing these different terms can be confusing, and really what ultimately you want to do is try to, as best we can, simplify this to help you understand the supports that are available to you. And each of these terms refers to specific responsibilities that you have according to the Department of Labor, as an operator of a retirement plan. So having these supports can really help eliminate and reduce a lot of liability that comes associated with running and operating a qualified retirement plan.
Exactly right. So I think we'll start with the 316 terminology and what that entails, which would be on my end, right? So if you ever come across some type of solicitation or some vendor or another third-party administrator mentioning that they are a 316, what does that really mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I like to back up and talk about this 316 terminology. All that entails is when you look into what ERISA, or Employee Retirement Income Security Act, when that was rolled out, all the 316 is referring to is actually the section 316 in that law. And what it details and lists are all the responsibilities that you as a business owner that offers a retirement plan, or some of your teammates or plan sponsors, what are those responsibilities when you offer this 401k plan? Right? And if we think on a high level of 401ks, it sounds pretty simple, right? You may offer a match. Employees can decide how much they want to withhold from their paycheck to help grow their retirement nest egg. And that all sounds great. But what we know, Dominick, that a lot of our viewers hopefully feel is that it's not so simple.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at some of these requirements or listed out responsibilities of plan administrators, which FYI, is typically the business owner or the plan sponsors or the trustees of the plan, there's a lot that you have to maintain, right? So just some simple concepts of these requirements: maintaining a plan document, monitoring your employees, your new hires, and making sure when they become eligible and tracking that eligibility requirement that they're notified about the plan. All those great annual notices that some of our viewers may have to lick envelopes a couple times a year to get out, or even submitting contributions in a timely fashion, or approving loans and distributions if your plan allows for those, and your employees are trying to take a loan or take a distribution. Making sure you do those properly is really what that 316 section covers. So if you hear a vendor or some type of solicitation of a third-party administrator saying, hey, we take on those 316 responsibilities, that's awesome, right? And we can do that here at Hunix. And I think that is a no-brainer when you're operating a 401k plan. If you can outsource those responsibilities, why not? But I think what we wanted to talk about today is really unpacking what those 316 services is that TPA doing for you. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That was going to be my next go-to question. It was like, okay, you hear a lot of companies and even record keepers say, hey, we offer 316 services, but when you scratch below the surface, there can be a very different level of service that you as a plan sponsor actually receive, right? And so definitely want to dig into a little bit more as far as what you as a plan sponsor should be looking for when considering a 316 service.
Absolutely. And I think what's also important to highlight is, and I speak for our firm in this case, a lot of those responsibilities we're going to do in our standard service agreement. Now, of course, all those listed responsibilities, if some type of vendor or TPA is mentioning they can do all that, there's going to be a fee for it. So maybe it doesn't make sense to pay for all these 316 services if you don't technically need them. Or maybe, for instance, here at Hunix, we're already handling most of those in the standard service agreements that we give to our clients. But I think what boils down is really the key of those services and maintaining a plan. So I think of it as from a payroll perspective, right? Are you making sure you're depositing those payroll deductions in a timely fashion? That's a key aspect to 401ks. If you process payroll today on Monday, employees got the check tomorrow or Wednesday, the DOL says you have about, per administrative procedure, or typically 7 business days to get that money in on time into your employees' accounts without having any issues. So when you set up your plan or you've created a 401k already, how are you handling those payroll contributions? Because as you know, Dominic, as we both know, there's a lot of solutions out there that can automate that and really take that off your plate as a business owner or plan sponsor.
Totally.
I also think notices, right? If you offer auto enroll, which every plan moving forward is going to have it. If you do a safe harbor contribution as an employer, these are annual notices that have to go out every year. Are you having to do that? Are you licking those envelopes? Or could you possibly bring in a solution that can automate that for you as well? Mm-hmm. Even maintaining new hires and tracking eligibility, which in layman's terms is your plan allows or is able to have restrictions on when you become eligible for the benefit. Well, that's great. And if you're doing a 1 year and maybe you require a certain amount of hours in that 1 year, who's actually tracking and monitoring that to make sure you're doing it properly? The beautiful thing with our industry is, and where we are with technology, a lot of the vendors can do that on your behalf. Mm-hmm. So the things I just outlined, notices, payroll, eligibility, a lot of that can set up without having to pay this premium for 316 services. What I will say is what is common in 316 offerings is having that firm sign off the 5,500 filing that's required every year. To me personally, I think that is worth the dollar for it, because now you're alleviating yourself or the business owner or the plan sponsor of having to take responsibility that everything was accurate in the 5,500 and passing that to your third-party administrator or your vendor. So that is, I think, a key aspect of a 316 is, are they taking on that signing of the 5,500?
Totally. And it also helps keep the plan sponsor's personal information confidential, right? Because then they're out there, they're not receiving these random, phone calls, people trying to get them to move their 401k plan. So I think that in of itself, can help, reduce the amount of traffic that your phone line gets.
Exactly right, Dominic. And again, I think what we try to do our best, Dominic, for our mutual clients is just streamline this 401k plan, because we know how much is on our business owners' plates and even plan sponsors and HR teams. So if there's solutions out there that can really streamline and take a lot of these responsibilities off their plate, why wouldn't you have a conversation with us?
Totally.
So ultimately, when you hear the term 316, high level looking in, it's outlining those responsibilities that trustees, plan sponsors, business owners technically have to follow if they're going to offer a retirement plan for their employees. And if you have one now and you don't have a 316, or you're not working with a third-party administrator and an advisor like Dominic, maybe it's worth a conversation, because it'd be very nice to be able to outsource all those responsibilities. Yeah. One of my favorite things, real quick, Dominic, that I hear in our industry a lot that I love is we task those responsible with 401ks with the most responsibilities who know the least amount about 401ks, right? Yeah. And that's the key to all this, is just bringing in a solution and a team that not only cares, but also does know a lot and does this every day and can help alleviate a lot of those pain points in 401ks.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I was going to say is, like, I've been in situations where, we're sitting down and we're talking with the plan sponsor about what we can offload through these 316 services. And we were looking at just like the amount of time that it saves that small business owner. So yes, there's going to oftentimes be an additional cost for a full 316 service. But if you look at the value of the time savings, like a lot of times it's just a huge net benefit.
Well said. And one thing I didn't hit on that I think is also super important from a day-to-day perspective is when your employees request a loan, or an ex-employee is trying to take a distribution, or even an active employee is able to take an in-service distribution. Wouldn't it be nice to where you can tell the business owner or your HR team or plan sponsor that, hey, you no longer have to receive that request, make sure it's accurate, check the vesting, and then approve that request. You can pass that to a 316 TPA.
Totally.
Right.
Sometimes that parting of ways doesn't always end on the best of terms. So with someone else and just not have to deal with it again, like that could be quite nice.
Right. So again, in hindsight, I hope after listening to today's webinar, hopefully you have a better understanding of what this 316 entails. What does it mean? But also just a reminder to make sure that it makes sense to use a 316, right? So that's a third of the wonderful threes, as we like to call them, Dominic. But how about you talk to us a little bit about this 321 and 338 and what that entails for a lot of our business owners, plan sponsors?
Absolutely. And, Blake, as you had mentioned earlier, this references, part of the IRS code, and essentially looks at the investment responsibility associated with running and offering a qualified retirement plan. Now, you as a plan sponsor, you do have a unique responsibility to make sure that you're monitoring the investment lineup. Your plan participants, meaning your employees who are participating in the plan, they are essentially limited to the investment choices that they have within a core 401k investment lineup. So with that comes a higher level of responsibility to make sure that the quality of the funds that they're being offered are prudent and in line with a quality investment offering. So these two services vary slightly in the way they approach it, but they do help mitigate some of, if not all of, the responsibility that you have associated with the investment lineup. Blake, as you mentioned, one of the things that you touched on, when I work with small business owners, they're not wanting to look at 20 different mutual funds and like the performance or the Sharpe ratios, the alpha of the various funds. Like totally. That's not their gig. Like they just want to focus on growing and operating their business, which totally makes sense, right? So that's where I can come in, and we can look at how do we construct this investment lineup to make sure that we're offering high quality investments to your employees, and again, also mitigating the risk. So with a 321 investment lineup, think of it as, and the best analogy I've heard is, let's say we're taking a road trip together, right? A 321 investment service, you're going to have someone who's a passenger, they're going to have a roadmap. Think of this roadmap as what we refer to in the investment world as an investment policy statement. So this investment policy statement gives us criteria on how we're going to evaluate the investment lineup and when and how we're going to make adjustments and changes. So you have someone who's in the car with you, we're on this journey together, and they're going to make recommendations. They're going to be like, hey, Blake, I think we should take a left turn here, or we should take a right turn here. Now, you as a plan sponsor, you have some control and discretion whether or not you follow through on these recommendations. So you're taking a little bit more of an active role in actively managing the investment lineup. Oftentimes with this 321 service, when there are fund changes that do need to be made, there's oftentimes forms that need to be signed to implement these changes. And of course, as you mentioned with the 316 services, like there's various notices that do need to go out to all the employees to help notify them, like, hey, look, your investment lineup is changing, and you now have new investments to choose from. So with a 321, again, you're a little bit more engaged with the overall look and feel of the lineup. But again, you're having someone join you in this process, helping you document the process and help limit the liability associated with running and managing this quality investment lineup. Now, the 338 is a little bit more hands-off. Instead of being in the driver's seat, you're now in the passenger seat, right? And so this 338 investment manager, again, drafting out an investment policy statement, they're going to produce reports and data and information for you to be able to review. And your responsibility as a plan sponsor, you're not supposed to just call it a day. You still have to be engaged and make sure that the recommendations are that they're making are being completed and followed through on. Also, you need to monitor the overall cost for the services that they're providing, make sure it's prudent and in alignment with the industry standards. But as far as the day-to-day fund changes that need to happen, this 338 service is going to be taking that over for you. So they're going to say, hey, Blake, we're turning left here, right? And it looks different for you. So instead of sending you forms on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis, they're doing a lot of that on your behalf. So these two components, again, they really help mitigate a lot of liability and a lot of responsibility with running and operating investment lineup. Again, this is not something that most of my business owners love and want to be really engaged in. Now, one of the pieces of pushback that I've received from time to time is like, hey, Dom, like our plan isn't huge. Maybe we only have, 2 million or 3 million or 5 million, $10 million in assets. Like, what do you really think the risk of me being sued personally associated with this plan? Well, it's crazy because, previously we've seen really, really large publicly traded organizations, be sued with the quality of their offerings, right? So there's law firms that specifically targeted large companies and large plans. That has started to change. If you look at some of the articles in the investment news, like plans as big as, $2 million, $5 million, like we're starting to see these lawsuits. So just because your plan isn't massive doesn't mean that you don't necessarily need that protection. I personally had a case last year where there was an employee separation, the employee separated not on good terms. She was vindictive and she was trying to go after this business owner. And one of the things that she brought up was the quality of the 401k fund in the lineup. Well, good news, we had a 338 on the plan, and that really helped reduce the stress in that already stressful situation for my small business owner client. So I think it's just a really wonderful tool. Helps increase the operational efficiency, helps reduce the overall liability, being able to offer a high quality 401k plan. You do have to be involved. Again, working with a quality advisor will help you shape, the investment policy statement, select the right 321 or 338 service, and again, help you monitor, the lineup to make sure that that service provider is following through on their stated objectives.
Right on, and I love that analogy. And if our viewers are listening right now, I think, correct me if I'm wrong. I think both scenarios, 321 fiduciary, 338. Still, both, depending on which way you want to go, are still great options for that client. Now, if I heard you correctly, 321 still gives you a lot of that reduced fiduciary requirements and responsibilities, but it still does ask for a little bit of guidance from you as a plan sponsor.
Correct.
Whereas the 338 is just, hey, this is what we're going to go with. You still got to make sure, to your point, they're executing on what they're saying they're doing, but it does alleviate you from those investment responsibilities. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, no, that's an accurate assessment, right? And as someone who's selecting a 321 or a 338, like you want to understand that investment firms, philosophy and the way they go about monitoring the investment lineup and managing the funds within the lineup, right? So we still have that responsibility to go through that due diligence process and monitor on an ongoing basis. But your day-to-day requirements of being super involved with the fund lineup is greatly reduced.
And I think even in that aspect too is, how many mutual fund options are out in the investment world now?
Yeah.
Hundreds of thousands.
Like I don't know the number off the top of my head,
but it's up there.
It's way up there. It's more than you can shake a stick at.
So I always say this is where working with a guy like you, Dominick, is huge, because whether or not they decide to go a 321 or 338, that's a lot of investment responsibility for you as a business owner or plan sponsor to make sure you're picking a lineup that suffices for all your employees. So to just work with you and making sure that lineup is fits or checks off all those boxes, I think is key in itself. But then to be able to bring in this type of fiduciary protection with this level of 321 or 338, I don't see why we wouldn't take advantage of that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, just the amount of protection that it provides is, amazing. And again, if it helps reduce you from the day-to-day operations of the plan and frees up your time, like super, super valuable. One of the extra steps that I enjoy taking with my business owner clients is like looking at the demographics of their staff. Is the staff younger? Is the staff older? Are they more or more conservative? So even with the 321 or the 338 investment lineup, we can shape the fund offerings within it to best be tailored to the demographic of the organization. So going through that whole process and documenting that out is just like, I'm a total finance nerd. Like that kind of stuff is fun for me, right? And just being able to really craft that finely tuned offering, knowing that it's going to help produce, you know, long-term positive results and help people achieve a sound retirement. Like I get so much joy and fulfillment out of that.
I love that. And think about it, right? Outside of just the investment menu for the employees, do you as a business owner really want to help an employee decide where they should be investing? Right? Because even by just giving any type of recommendation, if you're not licensed to do that, you are leaving yourself susceptible to lawsuits, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's part of the reasons why I think every 401k plan should have a high quality independent advisor, right? Because unless you're licensed and you carry insurance for that licensing to give financial advice, like that's not a position you ever want to, you know, put yourself in.
Right.
You know.
And I think ultimately that's the key here is like, so if you are watching this and you offer a retirement plan for your employees, or you're managing a retirement plan for the company you work for or the organization, do you have an advisor that's taking on a 338 or 321 fiduciary level of protection? Mm-hmm. Do you have a third-party administrator that can take on a lot of those 316 responsibilities? If not, that's where we would love and be open to a conversation, because there are solutions out there that can really streamline some of these tough aspects of qualified plans, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Well, always appreciate the time, Dominic. I don't think we figured out our next webinar, but appreciate it. And hopefully our viewers get something out of this.
Yeah. Look forward to the next one. Thanks, Blake.
Thank you.